So now we're recording. And we post them to YouTube after our events. So relax and just enjoy the evening from the comfort of your home. Please do share the videos once we've posted them if you're so inclined. They are all sort of edited by our very talented Debbie Bates and posted both to our YouTube channel and to Facebook in the weeks after the event. Thank you also so much to the individuals and groups who have made this night possible, especially my dear friend Misty Knight and our friends at Shippensburg University. Greg Williams, who, as I understand it, may just tell a story for the very first time tonight. He normally is, making sure our drinks are full and our plates are ready at ABC. So this is a chance for him to have a break. Thanks also to Hannah Nawa and the Thought Lot, to Kurt Smith, who is so wonderful in creating our artwork for our flyers each month, and Shape Gallery, who are our partners in promoting the arts and humanities in downtown Shippensburg. And thanks also to Mitchell Burrows, who makes all of this possible financially. An extra special thanks to our friend of Story Slam, Tim Deal of Ship and Stitch, who will be handcrafting a one-of-a-kind quilted wall hanging for tonight's Ship Story Slam winner. We also want to thank our season sponsors, the Lurs Center at Shippensburg University, who will be donating tickets tonight to a performance of the winner's choice when the Lurs Center is able to have performances again, which we all very much hope is in the not too distant future. Please join me in thanking the Lurs Center's Kim Garris, Ken Bach, and Robin Dolbin for making this fantastic partnership possible. Some of you may have heard of the first Story Slam for the first time this month from the awesome marketing that our friends at the Lurs Center at Shippensburg University have helped us with, and we are really, really appreciative of that. Thank you also again to those who have agreed to tell stories tonight. We'll hear from our scheduled speakers in the first half. They don't know what order they're in yet, though, so there's still that element of surprise as we pull their names from the virtual hat. If you decide during the first half that you'd like to tell a story, we will make an open mic available after the first group go for anyone who wants to share. So, to the rules. Stories should reflect the theme of the evening. Our theme for April is In Bloom. And as I've talked to some of our potential storytellers, feel free to interpret In Bloom as liberally as you like to. It could be in the bloom of your youth, right? It could be anything that happened in the spring. It could be anything that happened in the late winter or the early summer. Bloom and onion stories from Outback Steakhouse. We'll take them all tonight and more. Stories should be true to the best of your recollection. You're gonna, please don't tell my mother that I probably butchered the story that I'm going to tell tonight. It may be multiple stories pushed together, but such is the nature of memory, is it not? Stories should be about 5 minutes long, and we can really stop you now. Like, we can literally you will disappear into the Story Slam ether. Misty has her finger on the mute button. So keep that in mind. The story should be your story, right? You should be the character or a central character in that story. These are stories, the beauty of Story Slam is that it's stories about you. It's your life, your story. That's what we're all about. And finally, no notes, no props, just you and the microphone, or in this case, you and that window to the universe that you have a few inches from your face. Additionally, it's important to remember that storytelling is about compassion, vulnerability, empathy, right? To that end, storytellers should avoid racist slurs and epithets, glorification of unwanted sexual advances, or using someone else's identity as a punchline. Across the world and in our daily lives, storytelling is meant to make connections, and at its core, it's about caring on a deep level for other people. Show us you care for the audience, and the audience will take care of you. Often stories told on nights like tonight are difficult. Often they're funny, and it's a true gift if they're both. Next, I'd like to introduce you to our judges. Drum roll. You, every single one of you, are going to be our judges for tonight. There will be polling, and the entire audience gets to weigh in on the results. As soon as each speaker finishes their story, a poll should appear on your screen. You'll get a minute or so to, to hash it out in your mind and give each storyteller a score of 1 to 10 based on content and presentation. Content: does the story have substance? Is there a story arc, a beginning, a middle, and an end? How good is their delivery for presentation? Are they engaging? Do they captivate the audience? And have they kept their story to around 5 minutes? We'll know because Misty will cut them off. Just saying. Now, as tonight's host for the In Bloom event, I'll kick storytelling off by sharing one of my own stories. But I just want to let our first storyteller have a little bit of warning so that he is ready to go. And our first storyteller tonight will be Mr. Aaron Dobbs. So my story is, it's a funny little story. When I was a kid, every spring, I would look forward to going to camp. It was actually church camp, and it was sailing camp. Anybody who knows me knows that I got a sailboat parked in my front yard, and I developed my passion for sailing at this church camp. And what was so wonderful about camp, and any of you who had great experiences of camp know that the real beauty of camp is that you could recreate yourself. You could retell your life story for people that had no idea who you were, no preconceptions about you. And I know that I, as a kid who, had his share of troubles with, figuring out how I fit in and, insecurity and such, church camp was something that I always look forward to every spring. This is not a story about camp, however. This is a story about one of the days that I was supposed to leave for camp and the events that happened on that spring day in June. So many of you, or some of you at least, may be familiar with farming. And the thing that comes around every June is first cutting hay. And when I was a kid, I grew up on a farm. And so every June, once school let out, I was expected to be out in the field helping my father or grandfather put up hay. And my grandfather, he is the well of many stories that you'll meet over the years, probably at Story Slam. He was a real character. And he was a 2-pack-a-day chain smoker, a habit he picked up in the Army in the 1940s. He was never actually deployed. He had an injury during basic training, but he was in the Army long as a habit. And he was one of those serious, it's part of your life smokers. He smoked Camel non-filtered cigarettes the entire time I knew him, 2 packs a day. And he was so dedicated to getting that poison brew of chemicals from those cigarettes that if for some reason the store didn't have Camel non-filtered cigarettes, he would buy filtered cigarettes and rip the filters off and smoke them anyway. He died very suddenly at 80 from lung cancer and emphysema. Imagine that, right? Story for another time. This is a springtime story, not a fall story. So on this particular day, I was getting ready to leave for camp, and my grandfather needed to put up hay, and I was the sacrificial lamb of my family to go out and help him for $3 an hour. My grandfather was notorious for a number of things. His hatred of my grandmother, his hidden drinking habit, and his cigarettes, among many other things. But he was notorious in my family for when he was driving the tractor with. You've seen the hay wagons with the square balers behind them, and the square balers would throw the square bales up into the wagon. You ever seen those? It was very good practice. I became a good football player, and dodging 75 pound bales of hay as they come screaming out of the sky toward you is pretty good practice for football. So my grandfather was notorious for lighting up a cigarette and just going. He didn't look back ever. I mean, and that's dangerous, as you can imagine, because a lot of things can go bad when your grandson is in a hay wagon 6 hours before it's time for him to leave to go to camp on one June Sunday afternoon, when his parents have sent him out there to help grandpa to pay his penance before he goes to camp. And so my grandfather lit up his cigarette, got on that tractor, and just went row after row. We'd have busted bales. He'd figure it out at the end of the row. No problem. He didn't pay a bit of attention. And this particular field that we were in, it was a bit of a hill. I'm from southeastern Ohio, right? Kind of the West Virginia side of Ohio. If you think of Ohio, there's the West Virginia, Ohio, and then there's the Indiana, Ohio. I'm from the West Virginia, Ohio. So it was hilly. And this, I spent an hour dodging these hay bales coming after me, thinking, just dreaming of heading to camp to see my friends that I only got to see a year, to be able to recreate myself, to have a spring for my identity. And all I wanted to do was get done. And I knew that my mom would be coming to pick me up in half an hour or so. And so I was hurriedly stacking these bales. And we finally got to the end of the field. The hay wagon was completely full. My grandfather was smoking probably his 8th cigarette of the adventure, not paying a bit of attention. Couldn't hear me if I was screaming because the tractor was so loud. You can hear the ominous notes starting to creep into my voice here, can't you? Right? Couldn't hear me if I was screaming. And as he drove up this steep hill to get out of the field, the wagon wheels started to lift just a hair off the ground. Wagon, very top heavy, full of hay, started lifting a little bit. And so, of course, I started screaming at him to stop. He had Merle Haggard on his head. He had his cigarette in his mouth, and he was barreling away. So as we went up this hill, the first wheel kind of started to lift up. The other wheel on that side started to lift up. And here I am on top of this whole wagon load of hay. And then the whole thing collapsed right on top of me, right? Just right over. My grandfather eventually turned around when the tractor wouldn't move anymore because the hay wagon was on its side, with me having just at the last second jumped to safety to get the hell away from these square bales that were just about to crush me. And it was probably one of the happiest sights of my life as this happened, as my grandfather was getting off, turning the tractor off, coming around, yelling, how the hell are we going to get this turned around? How the hell are we going to do this? How are we going to get this going? To see our 1987 Oldsmobile come driving up with my mom in it. And I could say, sorry, Grandpa, I'm heading to church camp. So there's my In Bloom story. So I'm so excited to welcome Aaron Dobbs to the stage. Aaron, a regular and a great guy. Please do come on up and welcome to the Ship Story Slam virtual stage. Thank you.
So I'm supposed to give everyone a minute to vote, right? No, yes?
Not on me, friend. I'm the host, so no voting for me.
Okay. Well,
It's all you, Aaron.
I can't see myself, so I don't know if I've got it like catty corner or cattywampus. I don't know. So we're just going to run with it. So In Bloom. So my story starts about 150 years ago. 1879, my great-great-great-grandfather moved from England to the United States in New Jersey and brought with him his skill. He was a florist. My great-great-grandfather continued that line of work for his entire life. And along the way, he went to expositions across the country, and he won a silver medal, second place in the Universal Exposition of St. Louis. In case anyone's, if you can actually see that, I don't even know. But, oh, sorry. Definitely a classic 1870s, 1880s kind of thing. And then just wanted to highlight that the flowers that they displayed at that place were raised in a greenhouse in Auburn, New York. The house was built by Jack, which was a great uncle, sorry, a 3 greats uncle of mine. And here's a picture of the greenhouses. And if you look at the middle guy is my two great grandfather, George, and then to George's right is William George, my great grandfather, and that's also my great great grandmother and my great aunt Emma. So anyway, a little bit of trivia there. But you said bloom, and so we're going for flowers. It turns out that greenhouse was also where we were able to buy the flowers for my father's funeral, because it's still in business, but it's not in the family anymore. We sold it just before the Great Depression, whereupon my grandfather then lost all the money. So they're careful when you sell your business and then invest just before the stock market goes south, right? But long story short, flowers is kind of running in the family, and we're a little early because what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a picture or show you guys the front walk where we have a row of tiger lilies, but none of the lilies are actually out yet. The green shoots are up. My house runs about a week behind the rest of my neighborhood because I'm probably too cold. But I just thought I'd throw in a little bit of history here. If you're going to go back to childhood, I might as well double down and go back to the 1800s. So thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. I agree. Taking springtime back to the 1800s, and then particularly bringing in flowers at a funeral, Aaron. I think that's a fantastic touch. So you're going to be seeing on your screen a poll for Storyteller Vote. So please do think about content and presentation, and then just click 1 through 10 to register your scores for Aaron, and we will add those up at the end.
Just for clarification, we are ranking 10 as the highest, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So I really appreciate. While everyone is tabulating their scores, I want to just give our next storyteller a couple minutes to get prepared. Our next storyteller up is going to be Ben Geesamen. So Aaron's story reminds me that and a spring can hold a whole lot of different meanings for all sorts of different people. Daffodils can mean many different things. They're the official flower of Easter. They're also the semi-official flower of the American Cancer Society, and so they can have a lot of different meanings for folks. Springtime in a pandemic, of course, also has its interesting ironies baked in, as everyone sort of, particularly yesterday, was enjoying, or at least enjoying looking at a beautiful spring day, sort of springtime in Armageddon, as I've taken to referring to it. So I really appreciate the diversity of different kinds of stories that we can hear. So I need to figure out now just how to take a look. Poll is closed, and I will let our intrepid Debbie Bates announce the score tabulation. It may take her a couple more minutes to do that, and so we can go ahead and get started with Ben. And then, actually, we can just do it this way. I take that back. We're going to try to do it. Hold on a second. Let me figure out how to do this.
I added them all up if you want that.
Yes, I do, Debbie. Thanks.
No problem. Aaron, you got an 87.
An 87. So we're starting off with an 87 for Aaron. The score to beat.
87.
Yep. The game where the points don't matter.
How many people are on this chat right now?
What's that?
How many people are on this chat right now?
19.
19. Yep. So, okay. Ben, take it away.
Can everyone hear me good? Yeah, perfect. So this is my first Story Slam story, so bear with me. But to me, bloom to me signifies growth, especially after like a period of rest. And at this point in my life, I was only like 15 or 16. I had no real drive or passion per se. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So again, I'm like 16 years old. It's early summer. I'm single. My brother's in the honeymoon phase of his last relationship. And the goal for the day is to go to BWI to drop off his girlfriend for an early morning flight. And then my brother and I were going to go to Inner Harbor and enjoy the day together and then come home for dinner. And to start, everything went smoothly. We went to the airport. I was a little tired because I was up till like 2 a.m. at the diner drinking coffee the night before. But I was feeling good. But I remember it was a scorching hot day. So we go to the airport, drop her off, and then we're driving around Baltimore. This is the first time we've really driven in the city, so we were lost, all right? We finally, there's no parking. So we drive a little more, and we park like 15 blocks away from where we wanted to go. So there we are, walking this 15 blocks, takes about a half hour in the scorching heat. And we make it to the Barnes & Noble, right beside the Hard Rock Cafe. And they're closed until noon. It's like 11 a.m. So we're standing there, and all of a sudden, I get dizzy, can't think, I'm getting nauseous, and I'm like, if I have a heat stroke right here on the steps of Barnes & Noble, that won't look too good. So I asked my brother if we can go to the cafe across the street. He obliges. We get there, and I'm 16, I'm not the wisest, and I think to myself, why get an ice cold water when I could get an ice cold coffee, And I get the ice cold coffee, drink it, feel good for about 10 minutes. And then I get the worst migraine of my life. I'm obviously extremely dehydrated. Still haven't really told my brother the severity of the situation. So we walk back to the and I'm sitting in the I'm standing in the philosophy section, and I realize that I'm probably about to faint. So I'm like, Zach, that's his name, his name. You do you. I'm gonna sit in this chair right here and just look at the books for a while because I can't stand. And I've never done this. Of course, I read it online, but I've heard it's similar. Like when you drink too much and you get the spins, and you've got 3 choices: sit down, stare at something, and be okay, or fall or puke somewhere. I don't want those 2. So I'm sitting there in the philosophy section, reading the spines, just staring there like a madman. And after 30 minutes, I stumble, get some water, keep drinking water, and I feel a little better. And my brother comes running down. He's like, Ben, there's the library here, or the Barnes & Noble has a Criterion collection, which for those of you who don't know is a company that restores old films. And my brother and I are film buffs, so we were naturally excited. And we go up there, spend every cent that we had on movies, all right? And we leave, we're very happy, I'm feeling better, we're on top of the world. And then this homeless man comes up to me, and we're like, sorry man, like we just spent all the cash we had, we have nothing to give you. And he's like, that's okay, can I sing you a song real quick? And my brother and I like look at each other, we're a little confused, and we're like, sure. So this homeless guy comes up, and he does a freestyle for about 3 minutes, complimenting my brother, complimenting myself, our clothes, how nice we were. And then he finished it with, I'm not asking for money. I've got shoes on my feet. All I want is something cool to drink and something to eat. And my brother and I felt really bad, and we looked at each other, and my brother was like, I do have my debit card, so yes, we will take you. And the homeless guy, his name was T, that's what he went by. He said there's a burger shack, a burger and shake shack a couple blocks down. Can you take me there? And we're like, sure. So we take him, we're walking, he's telling us his life story. His girlfriend recently left him, he lost his job, and then he went into this downward spiral into where he was. And he said that what kept him going was the hope of digging himself out of this hole. And he said that his goal in life was to get out of this hole and write a book called From the Bottom to the Top. And his end goal in life was to get it published by Penguin Classics. That was his goal. And, it was really heartwarming, and, we really connected with this guy, and we get in line for like 15 minutes. We're talking to T, and we go to order, and my brother realizes he left his debit card at home. And we were utterly destroyed. And T could definitely tell how bad we felt. And he looked at us, and he was holding back tears, and he's like, gentlemen, he's like, I really don't care about the food, just the fact that you spent 15 to 30 minutes with me. completely made my week. No one ever does that. Everyone ignores me here. And I just want to say thank you for what you've given me today. And that really was impactful to me because I realized that this man with nothing was more hopeful about the future and grateful about the things he had than I was as a privileged male in South Central Pennsylvania. And after that moment, it really inspired me to get involved in politics and community service. And that was definitely the pinnacle and the point that I realized that's what I wanted to do with my life. So you could say it was a bloom or a growth of sorts for me. But that's all I have, and thank you for listening.
That was fantastic, Ben. Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for that. A true story with twists and turns with a happy ending. Boy, that gets you right there. Thank you so much. Just to give them a heads up, while the polls are out for Ben Geesamen, Dale Crowley will be our next speaker, a perennial favorite of Ship Story Slam. We're so delighted to have Dale. Ben, that was a really touching story, and it's what's so cool to me is that kind of unintended event with its twists and turns, started you off on a career that is really making a big difference in our community. So I don't know if I'm ever going to meet T or not, but man, if I do, I'm going to shake his hand and tell him thank you for inspiring you, because you really inspire us. So I'll give Debbie a few minutes to tabulate our polls, if everyone gets those submitted, and I'd tap dance for you, but I have no pants on, so that might be awkward. I guess a different kind of bloom, perhaps. We'll draw the line. We have to draw the line somewhere, friends. As Debbie's doing the poll, if anyone who's come in a little later, welcome to Ship Story Slam, virtual edition. We have a kind of a set of storytellers who have graciously agreed to tell their stories in advance, but we already have 2 folks who aren't on the original list who are going to tell stories as well. What we'll do is we'll go through our sort of storytellers that we've identified first, and then we'll take a break for folks to get up and walk around and take a break. I don't know about you all, but I'm spending a hell of a lot more time in front of my computer screen these days than I ever hoped to. So I can always use the break, and then we'll come back and we'll hit some of our other storytellers as well. So Debbie, are you ready yet?
Yes. Ben, you got a 92.
92, Ben. Congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, so Dale, you are now an official Zoom expert. So we're so delighted to welcome you to the Ship Story Slam stage.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Ben, that was a great story, by the way. I really hope that you come back in future events and share some more, because that was very, very well done. I really enjoyed that a lot. Thank you. My story tonight is really not a story of reflection. It's kind of a reflection on kind of where we are right now in society and what's going on around us. Maybe at some point in time, it'll be a story for someone in the future to be able to relate. But Alan, I'm sorry, you said that we could stretch an itty bitty thing as far as we wanted to with the theme of this. So bear with me. I'm going to get to In Bloom before we wrap this up, but it may take a little while to do that. I just wanted to kind of reflect a little bit about what's going on in the world today. There's obviously a lot of people are in a lot of trouble and a lot of doom and gloom. And if anybody out there knows me or has heard me talk before, I think you'll probably recognize the fact that I am one of those people that views the world through perhaps rose-colored glasses. I'm kind of a glass half full kind of guy. And while I recognize, obviously, the seriousness of the situation that we're all dealing with, I kind of want to reflect a little bit on some of the more positive things that I'm seeing. And this is where the In Bloom part comes in, Alan. What I'm seeing really is the personality of our country coming out, as it's reflected in the way people are reacting to it, how everybody is just kind of hunkering down and doing whatever it is that they can do to help everybody out. It's obviously a very scary situation, and I've actually, for my class loads in the last 2 semesters, I've had to read 2 post-apocalyptic novels, and I'm telling you, I've had about enough of this stuff for a while. But again, the good side of it is that if you look around and you listen to the news and you're able to get past the part where they're talking about the new cases and the people who have not had it end well for them and their families and all the unemployment and everything that's going on, but you also see the stories of neighbors helping neighbors. And to me, that's just a reflection of what we as human beings are. I was going to say Americans, but that's not true. That's far undervaluing what's going on in the world. There are people everywhere in the world that are doing the same thing that we're seeing reflected here in the United States. And I just think that that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it kind of gives me hope that once all the devastation is done and the dead have been buried and mourned, that at some point in time, we're going to get back to a fairly normal sense of being. And maybe that new normal will not only include some things that we think about as far as passing contagious diseases, but maybe it'll also reflect a little bit of what we learned about how to treat each other and what we need to do to get each other through this whole thing. So that's really about all I got. I just hope that maybe at some point in time, we all have great stories to tell our grandchildren about how this all went. And I wish each and every one of you the very best and good health, and keep doing whatever it is that you're doing to keep this thing at as much of a minimum as we can do. So God bless and take care.
Thank you, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
Thank you, Dale. Yeah, that's. I think that's a really good reminder that after this is all over, I hope that we can all bloom again. I mean, one of the ways I've been looking at it is maybe we're planting seeds for a future garden during this winter of the of existence here. So I like you, Dale, I'm that optimist. So I hope so, and I hope that we can all play our own little part in doing that. So our next storyteller up is really the original, the old guard of the Ship Story Slam universe, Drew Burdge. So Drew will be up in a few minutes. While take a look at the poll that Debbie sent around for Dale, and there we go, and put your votes in. So I'm really interested in hearing, some of you I've had a chance to chat with, some of you not. I know for me, I've been, I've been seeing my students like Dale and like Katie, and like others. This is a really difficult time for everyone, and boy, oh boy, this poor 9/11 generation. You guys, they often talk about the greatest generation, but I got to tell you, with the knocks that you all have had to deal with in your lives, I think we have a new greatest generation, coming to adulthood right now. Snowflakes my ass, to be honest with you. So I'm really excited to, I'm really hopeful that that our nation and that our world can grow into deserving you during the flowering of your lives. You're being sorely tested, and I foresee great things for that generation. So, okay, so Debbie.
I'm still added.
Okay, then I'll stall some more. I could juggle if you all would like me to, but I can't, so I won't. I still have no pants on, so no dancing. Although I do appreciate the vote of confidence from Patrick, both in my nether attire and in my dancing abilities, neither of which, frankly, are much to talk about. We'll save it for another time, and perhaps more than just a shot and a half of Whistle Pig. How's it going, Debbie?
Dale, your score is 101.
101 for Dale. Oh, fantastic, Dale. Thank you so much. Okay, so then that takes us to what we're looking at. Who did I say? Drew, right? Drew. Take it away, Drew. Drew, you have no audio. Not too bad. We made it this far without a technical glitch, and I think we can. I think things are gonna go through. Thanks again, Patrick. So, any luck with the audio yet, Drew? Not yet. Yeah, I don't. You're not muted, but for some reason your microphone's not picking up.
Alan, I believe he is muted.
Oh, is he? Couldn't see that on the screen. So no, well, he's not muted now. At least not according to my screen. Does it look still muted to you, Misty? Let's see.
When we weren't hearing him, I made sure he was unmuted, so.
Okay, yeah, so he's unmuted now, but we're still not hearing him, I think. Drew, is that right? Yep, he's talking, so we can't hear him. So
if it's through the app, then he might have to go out and set his settings to allow him to do that.
That could be. So in the meantime, why don't we jump to if he's available to do it, while Drew's getting his audio recovered. Luke, would you be up for jumping in? Okay, yeah, take it away, Luke.
Sure. Unless there's another Luke somewhere.
No, it's all Luke Lyman. Yep, Luke Lyman, our next storyteller. Drew.
We wish there was.
We'll get Drew taken care of. So go ahead.
So when given the prompt, I began to think about a lot of different things, and I have contributed a lot of my life to the pursuit and the study and the absolute joy of theater. And when it comes to theater, there's a term used for lights and lighting on a stage that a light can supernova, which means at the end of its life, it will become the brightest it has ever become before shutting off completely, brightest than it has ever been before. And this concept, I like to use the term supernova for a lot of other things, and that can be used in terms in regards to acting and in theater and in performance. In this effect, there has been over 60 Oscars that have been given out posthumously, which means, and those are only the competitive ones, to people who have passed away after they gave their performance, meaning that they did, in some respects, the very best they would have done in their entire life before they realized that that would be the last performance. Though sad and though exciting, because we were able to see those performances on our own and things like that are in a lot of ways rare, I believe there's another term in nature that helps to describe the early beginnings of a performer, and that would be bloom, or blooming, or in bloom. I work with the local middle school. I direct the middle school musical. This is my second year doing it, and I work with over 95 kids in cast and crew. We do not make cuts, and we do not exclude anybody. Much to the chagrin of many teachers and staff in a lot of ways, and much to my sanity sometimes. But my first year, which was last year, I was 18. I was given an email, sent an email by the chorus director there, Mr. Piper, and he said, we don't have a director. If we don't have a director, we won't have a show. And I couldn't imagine that, so I decided to do that. And when I first started, I had little understanding of why people direct. And I wholeheartedly believe that there are a lot of people that have been directing musicals for the majority of their lives, and they still don't understand the point of directing, especially on the middle school level. But I very quickly learned that it was not about me, and it was not about the show at all. I could care at all if the seats were filled and the tickets were sold. What I learned was that it was, for a lot of the kids, their first interaction with art and with theater and with music. One of the kids in particular, I would like to say there was only one, but there have been many that have come to me, and I have been given warnings from other teacher about them. Oh, they can't handle it. Oh, they're a bad kid. They misbehave. They can't handle a classroom setting. They can't. And this one in particular, I had been told by multiple faculty, and I'd been told by multiple students that this student, in more ways than one, wasn't worth time, or wasn't worth, would disappoint me, that I shouldn't expect much from him. The student he was in crew. He wasn't in the show. He wasn't in the cast. He was in crew. And he was difficult. I would not say that he was easy, but he was very difficult. He was attention seeking. He was disruptive. He was quick-witted and clever. In the second day, he made a very astute observation and raised his hand while I was speaking, and I called on him and he said, are you on cocaine? Because you're moving so fast. I don't think you could not be on something. And I thought it was hilarious. Some of the other people in the room thought he had made a grave mistake, but I thought it was very funny. And no, I am not, and no, I have never been, but yes, I do act like I am. But this student, I had many interactions with him. So much so that at some point, I had given him the job that he was the runner, meaning that he goes from the stage to the cafeteria to tell the kids that they are in charge. That they need to be on stage, and he was in charge of that. And he took it without any complaint and was completely devoted all the way up until Tech Week. I had problem after problem, and then 2 days before our show, I had an issue, and I said, if we don't figure this out, you will not be able to be here for the shows. A concept to me that it's very hard for me to say that, but I had to. I had already kicked 3 other kids out for various disciplinary reasons and stuff like that, and I had to stick to my guns. And I never had an issue with him. We do a thing, I learned it from the director at the high school. It's called check-in. So before every rehearsal, show, whatever, we go around the circle, we say how we're feeling, and we say something. It was opening night, and this boy was somebody who chalk it up to toxic masculinity, chalk it up to whatever. I had never had a moment of vulnerability with him. He was always hiding something. He was always putting up a front. He was always defending himself from an unknown aggressor. And we had check-in, and I look at all the kids as it is happening. And standing there in the circle of 95 kids, there's this boy that has almost always mocked this circle that we do every time. And tears are streaming down his face. And at that moment, I realized that he got it. Whatever that meant to him, he got it. And that's why I did it. He had bloomed. He had his moment where he went, this is why he was here, and this is why he had committed to it. And he wasn't the only person that was crying at that moment, but he had tears running down his face. And I stopped him afterwards, and I said, "Why? What's going on? Let's talk about this." And he said, he was like, I've never felt that I could be safe in my entire life. And in this moment, I understood that no matter what I said, I would have people that were going to be there for me. He said something along the lines, but one thing I could never forget is that he said, I knew that people were going to be there for me. And that's the point. In the best ways possible, I had taken this seed, this person that everyone had written off, that said that he was bad behaving, that he didn't deserve attention, that he didn't deserve the care. And he had grown into somebody that understood. And that was last year. And this year he wasn't at school. He had moved away. I don't know where he went. I have tried to track him down, and he's gone. And all I hope is that he continues to grow in the way that he was grown. And that is in bloom. Thank you.
Wow, Luke, that was, man, that was one of the real things that I love about the folks who, who come out to Story Slams and sort of get involved in this sort of humanities work is the way in which, on a very deep level, they can connect with people and change their lives. Just like with Ben's story, stories change people's lives, and the theater and the arts and storytelling change people's lives. And I feel like I've been changed just by listening to that story of a seed that you've planted, that the wind may take it where it may take it, but boy, oh boy, that seed's been planted. Thank you for sharing that with us, Luke. So we're going to give after Debbie gets a chance to tabulate the scores. We're going to try again with Andrew. I think he's got his microphone fixed. Debbie's going to make a little change in the way that she does the scores, and she is actually going to she's going to announce the average score rather than the total score, because the total is sometimes get influenced by how many people are on at a particular time. So she's going to do that average score. And Debbie is a history major, remember, so she can do averages, but don't be asking her to do sine and cosine or anything like that. So Debbie, let us know whenever you're ready.
So, Alan, in case you're wondering, you can actually put in multiple votes before you hit submit.
Yes, I noticed that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so hence the reason why we're also doing averages. So yes, I in fact accidentally did that the last time I voted. And so that was what keyed me into perhaps we may want to do somewhat of a mathematical change in our tabulations. So I should note, what's that?
So for students, if it's a multiple choice question, just answer all of them and hit submit, and you got it right.
You've got at least got one right among those 9 wrongs. Absolutely. And I should note, many of our storytellers tonight are past winners. So when I said it was the game in which the points don't matter, I did mean that. Luke, on the other hand, however, is not one of our past winners. He, in fact, I think he is the Chicago Cubs, right, or the Boston Red Sox, the most famous of the non-winners up to this point. So this may be his World Series moment tonight. You never know. So it would be something else. A man who is literally cannot leave his house and yet has the power to win a Story Slam. So we'll see. We'll just have to see how the night goes. So Debbie,
Luke, you got a 6.2.
6.2 average. So thank you so much. Okay. Drew, let's try things out with you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we're with you now. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Why can't you see me?
Because your video is muted.
All right.
So you should be able to start your video. There we go. Now we can see you.
All right. When I was a kid, on the first reasonably warm day of spring, myself and the Martin boys would ask our parents if we could go across the street and head out down through the feed mill parking lot, the place where the railroad tracks are surrounded on both sides by the hay fields and by honeysuckle. We walked down the farm trail that ran along the railroad tracks for about 1/8 of a mile or so until it turned and started going through the hay fields. If it was dry out, the tractor tires would turn the dirt of the farm trail up into fine dust. We walked barefoot in cut-off jeans and old shirts across the hay fields toward the cow pastures. When we get to the cow pastures, we'd skinny under the electric fence, the dust from the trail getting all over our jeans, our eyes puffy and our nose running from all the pollen. And we'd run down the hills in the pasture, dodging thistles and cow pies, heading to our favorite swimming hole. When we get to our swimming hole, the banks of it lined with limestone slabs and overhung by a big sycamore tree, We'd wait on the edge, trying to work up the courage to partake in that most ancient of rituals, washing the dust of the road off our feet. And finally, with enough courage, we'd start to wade in to the freezing creek. We'd shiver our way up to our necks and then start exploring all the things that had changed in our swimming hole since we'd been there last year. We'd start pulling out beads and rebuilding the dam and making our swimming hole ready for the really hot days of summer. Those days of summer when the hay and the trees aren't blooming anymore and the creek is warm and everything is perfect. You know, a kid goes down to a swimming hole in those early days of spring when it's not quite yet reasonably warm because he remembers what summer was like last year when the creek was just right and big slabs of moss grew everywhere and you could use them to chink up the holes in your dam. He walks through the hay fields thick with pollen because he remembers that in the perfect time of summer, the trees and the hay is done pollinating, and he won't need the cold creek to wash his eyes and make everything okay. And also a kid knows that there won't be that many summers left, and that they're special. So he heads out early to get there soon so that he can take advantage of every minute and every day, even when the hay is in bloom. Thanks, guys.
That's fantastic, Andrew. Thank you, man. I was wondering how many hay and agriculture stories we're going to make it into this. So at least we have 2 now. That's exciting. We've gone from the middle of the city out to the edges of the countryside all in one night. So that's absolutely fantastic. Your poetic sensibility, man, always really impresses me. So thank you so much for that. Here I tell a story about my stupid grandfather in a hay wagon, and you come up with that. So that's the power of storytelling, the beauty of storytelling. So thank you all so very much. Thank you. After this one, right now, we're going to take a couple of minute break. So we've gotten through our folks that we had signed up originally. We're going to take a few minute break, and when we get finished, we'll start out by Debbie announcing our score again, and Kaitlyn Johnson, you'll be first up. Once we get started again, so everyone get up, stretch, pet the cat. I'd say tip the bartender, but that may be just put money on your counter when you go out to the kitchen. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And to a bright future for all of us. Let's take a drink first, huh? Let's take just a minute or so to get our thoughts collected. Another minute and a half or so, and then we'll pull things together. I am going to send out to the group a copy of our flyer for May. Our May, which I'll come back and talk about in just a minute. Our May theme is, let me find it here. I'll send you the flyer. Our May theme is there we are. Don't tell mom. And I know already that Debbie's got a whole host of stories that she can tell for our May event. So I will send everyone out the flyer so that you can have it if you want, and that'll let you know. Feel free to distribute however you like. So let me get that out here. And there we are. There you go. So anyone wants a flyer, there it is. And I'll leave that. I'll switch us back to our April backdrop for now, and then I'll post that back up in just a moment. There we go. Okay, so I think we're about ready to get started. Patrick, did you want us to see something? I saw you put something to the screen, but I didn't catch it.
I was just showing off. Sarah and I are in Jacksonville, Florida. The temperature is currently 84 and the high was 90. So
I'm not sure if we're supposed to be jealous of you for that or not. We had a beautiful sunny 72-degree day yesterday.
I love
90 degrees sounds like, you know, it's pushing the boundaries for a beautiful spring. But
can we mute Patrick permanently, please?
So when you are in Jackson, so again, that also, I'm not depending on exactly your viewpoint, I'm not entirely certain that's something that we should be jealous of. But again, to each their own. So Debbie, why don't you get us started off with the average score for Drew, and then I think Katie's up.
Drew's average score was a 5.6.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Katie, take it away.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I apologize for the background in advance. I'm currently living in my parents' basement, so that's always fun. So this story actually has nothing to do with spring. Usually spring I am sedated in my room because of allergies. So we are going to talk about how I got into modeling. The last time I talked a couple months ago, I don't know if anybody remembers, but I mentioned how I won a modeling competition and went on a cruise. Well, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about that. So I was a very bullied kid through grade school. I was severely underweight. My BMI was 1%. I had really messed up teeth. I just didn't feel good about myself. And my parents wanted me to get to the point that I could model because that's what I wanted to do when I had enough confidence. So I was 2 years out of high school almost. I was 20 years old. So I started to think, you know what? I've gained some weight. I have a little bit more confidence. I think I want to give this a go. And so my friend was a makeup artist for this modeling agency that I knew of in the area. And I decided, you know what? Let's do this. So my boyfriend at the time was not approving. He didn't want me to go. He didn't want me to sign up. But if any of you know me, telling me to do something, it's never going to happen. So I signed up anyway. And my first photo shoot, I ended up doing a selected shot by the pool, and I was in a bikini. Well, the second that was uploaded, my boyfriend absolutely threw a fit. He was calling me, he was calling my friend that was doing makeup. All of a sudden, my new modeling friends that I just met are chewing out my boyfriend. And he then tried to give me an ultimatum of, it's me or modeling. And I told him, and I quote, "You do not want to ask me that ultimatum because you know what answer you're going to get." So he dropped it. And time went on, and a year later, the annual contest came around again, and I said, you know what? I think I have a pretty good chance of winning. So I decided to go all in. I was advertising for myself. I made it into the top 4, I believe, for voting. And then the people that run the agency then pick who wins to go on the cruise and be on the front of the calendar. So I went to the ceremony. He didn't go to the ceremony to even see if I would win. And I won. And he was not there to even see it. But we went out to celebrate my winning. I won a 2-week cruise, the cover of a calendar, and a lot of, people knowing that I was Miss 2020 or 2019, I think it was, because it was the end of 2018. So I was Miss 2019. And, it was all that popularity. So we went out to the bar to celebrate, and I was so excited. I was wearing my sash, and my boyfriend came. Well, he made a whole scene, almost fought someone at the bar, and just had a complete freak out. And he knew that I was not backing down. I was going on this cruise. I was doing what I deserved. So he tried to push it back, and we eventually got to the time that I went on this cruise. Well, on this cruise, I realized that he was not the only person holding me back from my potential. So on this cruise, it was myself, the manager of the agency, I don't want to drop any names, the assistant to the manager, and the model that won the previous year, and another model that was running this year, but she had never won a title. So that girl, I don't think she'll mind if I say her name. Her name was Alexis. We later discovered, wasn't brought just for fun or because they thought that she deserved to be on that cruise. She was brought because the manager wanted to have a thing with her. So he was blackmailing her, being creepy to her, and just being horrible, rude, fighting in public with her, all kinds of things. It was humiliating as a woman. And I did not appreciate his actions and everything. And I felt, you know what, I need to take control. This is my trip. This is what I won. This is about me. And you know what, for once, I'm going to make this about me. So we pretty much had a meeting with this manager, and I told him, you know what, keep your title, give it to someone else, because I'm not it. This was 6 days into the 14-day cruise. So we ended up leaving his room and going into the room of one of the other models because everyone left. It was a mass exodus. So I pretty much made over half of their models leave because of this situation. I was not shy about what happened. I was very vocal. I told them about how he was forcing himself on a girl less than half his age and how she was so uncomfortable and everything. And I decided, because I was the first model to have a title and not keep it all the way through to be on the calendar. I talked to previous winners, and they told me that was happening on my cruise too, but I let it go just so I could get that title. And I finally came to terms with it, and I realized, you know what? I don't need that title. I would rather be known as the girl that stood up for other women around me than be the girl that gets to hold a shiny crown. I don't want that. That is not something that I want to stand for. So I left. I did not get to be on the cover of the calendar. I did not get all the fame and glory that I wanted. And I also came home and broke up with my boyfriend. I packed my bags and I moved back home to my parents. So this was the absolute most raw and emotional time of my life. And I felt like everything was falling apart. But it wasn't until, over a year later now that I have discovered that I wasn't falling apart, I was blooming. Thank you, guys.
That's fantastic. I was like, this is a story about blooming. Wow, that's fantastic, Katie. Thank you. What a story about blossoming into adulthood. I mean, that's what that is. Wow. It's amazing. Isn't it amazing how a good storyteller can take a story and just make it so meaningful? I've just been so amazed with the way folks could do that, especially Katie and the fantastic stories that she tells. So while we take a moment for Debbie to tabulate the scores, I am delighted to report that in addition to Katie, we have 2 additional storytellers who will be coming on. Greg Williams is going to be our next storyteller, as I think I mentioned earlier, and then Sarah Thompson will round us out for the evening. The pride of Jacksonville currently, which we're very excited about. And Greg will be up next. Just to reiterate again, our Story Slam winners tonight. Many of our storytellers for tonight. Again, we pitched this idea to some of the old gang, and we're really delighted that they were able to step up on short notice and participate. So we have a couple of different storytellers who are actually the ones who are competing for the crown for tonight, and they'll be getting the winner for this evening. We'll be getting tickets, again, provided by the Lures Center, which we're so appreciative of. Again, once there is a show to be seen at the Lures Center, those tickets will be for a show at the Lures Center, and a one-of-a-kind wall hanging from our pride and joy of downtown Shippensburg, Ship and Stitch. So we thank you so very much to both of our sponsors, as well as to our sponsor, Appalachian Brewing Company, who are generally our hosts for the evening. I want to just put a word in to say thank you to all of the great staff at Appalachian Brewing Company. I don't need to say that so many of them are having such a difficult time right now with their livelihoods being challenged. So I don't want the night to get away without all of us just taking a moment to lift a glass and to thank all of those folks who at Appalachian Brewing, and to wish them the best, and to be able to hope to get back into their kind graces and experience their kind hospitality again soon. So thank you to Appalachian Brewing. Debbie, where are we for this one?
So Kate, your score was a 7.6.
Congratulations, Kate. Thank you so very much. And without further ado, the man we have been waiting for now for 6 months to see what he's got in him. He's a fantastic manager, fantastic restaurateur, and I don't doubt a fantastic storyteller. So please, Greg Williams, take it away.
Thanks, Alan, and thank you for your words about ABC and everything that we do, and thank you guys for supporting Story Slam and for Appalachian. So with the theme of this month and the significance of this month, Dale, you have heard this story already, so I'm sorry, I got to tell you again. So about In Bloom, I got engaged last year, almost to this day. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story that arose that morning. So I worked in Mechanicsburg before I moved down before I worked out of Shippensburg. And yeah, I worked late night, and I got home and it was maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, and my fiance says, "Oh, let's watch this movie." So she puts on this great movie, which now that we're all in seclusion, a good movie to watch is Highwaymen, for anybody that's looking for something to watch new. And I got sucked in. So I watched this whole thing. It's 3 o'clock in the morning by the time it finishes. And I go sit outside for a second and just enjoy the evening because it was a nice night. And I come back inside, and Jess is like, "We got to go to bed. We got to go to bed." And so we come upstairs, we go to bed, and the next morning came way, way faster than I expected it to, especially for somebody that likes to sleep in like I do. And I'm laying in bed, and my fiance comes upstairs, and she goes, "Greg, you need to come downstairs." And might have been the most tired I've ever been in my life, because I didn't question why she was up before I was and why I needed to go downstairs. I just slid out of bed, slowly walked down, didn't, put clothes on or anything, just walked downstairs thinking I'm walking into like a flood or something. So I get downstairs and I walk into the kitchen and I go, oh, you made breakfast. And she had made lox and bagels, which never happens. I don't think I even eat a meal before noon ever in my life. And this is probably 8 o'clock in the morning. So I've had about 4.5 hours of sleep, give or take. And so I'm standing there and I'm looking at the table kind of in a daze, really haven't said anything besides, oh, you made breakfast, which is super romantic. And she starts to get nervous. So she proposed to me. And not because I dragged my feet or anything like that. Our very first date, she told me, I don't want to get married. So I liked her, so I stayed with her. And she changed her mind. Apparently, she liked what she saw. I still haven't figured out why, but, she liked it. So she starts announcing everything that she's doing. Which threw me off completely. She's like, so I guess I get on one knee right now, and I look over, she's knelt down on one knee and she has a watch, and which is, I guess, is the way that a girl proposes to a man is with a watch. So she says, will you marry me? And I look over at her, still trying to gain my composure of why I'm even out of bed at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, of course. She was really like, will you marry me? I said, of course. And she stands up and she just goes, good. I need a glass of champagne. And so she runs into the other room and she has a bottle of champagne and orange juice to make mimosas. And she starts pouring them. Hers is a little heavier, I think, because she didn't sleep at all, which now in hindsight, she got less sleep than I did, but I felt like I was the one struggling. And I said, well, now that we've done this, now my body's starting to, to move. I need to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. So I'm in, I go to the bathroom, and as I'm in there, everything starts to, catch up to me, so I start welling up, my emotions are coming to me. I'm, understanding what's going on, and I walk out and I got tears in my face and everything. And she goes, oh, don't do this to me. I've already had a hell of a week. Don't even do this to me now. I'm sorry. Well, there's no holding back. So, we hug, kiss, we cheers our glasses. We have some champagne, we have our mimosas, and she goes, so this is a Friday morning. And she goes, so you don't have to go, your parents are on their way here right now. It's the weekend of Easter, which so happens to be this weekend coming up as well. And she's like, you don't have to go to work today. You don't have to go to work tomorrow. I'm like, yes, I do. Just because we just got engaged does not mean that my life stops. Like, I got party today, party tomorrow. I gotta be working. And she goes, nope, it's all been taken care of. You have the whole weekend off. We're going over to my parents tonight to have an engagement party with just, family. And then tomorrow we have a party at ABC in Mechanicsburg with friends and everything else, 40 plus people. And in my head, I'm going, how the heck did you get away with hiding a party from the person who deals with parties? And she had it under a different name, different everything, and apparently I found out that it was supposed to be done on Saturday, but she just couldn't hold it in any longer. And she wanted to get married, or she wanted to get engaged on Friday because she just couldn't hold it. So we had the whole weekend of events and everything else. And, the one thing that I thought, well, not the one thing, but one of the things that I thought was the coolest was when I was sitting outside the night before and just looking at the sky, whatever else. And the next morning we came downstairs, and when we went outside, the one tree that blooms in our yard had bloomed overnight. So it was full of flowers and full of everything. And I thought that, you know, on top of our life and everything else blooming, that was a sign as well that, you know, there's more than just us going. And it also happened to be a full moon. So there was a chain of events that really made everything come together, and I couldn't be a happier man. And it's very significant that this story and this month works together. So thanks for listening, guys, and hope you enjoyed that. Shut up!
That last little bit was definitely some marital bliss or premarital bliss on Greg's part as well, I'm sure there. So, and I should note, Greg, if it's okay for me to say, this pandemic has different effects on different people. And some of us, without getting into the details, some of us like Greg, they are really making a lot of sacrifices right now to keep us all safe and healthy. And I just want to, on so many levels, say thank you, Greg. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you. I'm really looking, I've seen pictures of her, but I still haven't seen your fiance. So I'm looking forward to meeting her someday as well. Thank you. And I just, in my mind, I don't know about everyone else, but in my mind, I just picture that next morning, that tree being in bloom, just as the start of your new life together. So that's absolutely fantastic. There's so many elements of that story I like, and I can't wait to follow up with you on down the road. So congratulations to you, Greg, on your engagement and on telling us such a fantastic story. So thank you so much. So just to remind everyone, Sarah Thompson will be our last storyteller for the evening. It's been such a pleasure for everyone to have you all here. On this, virtual tour of our community through storytelling. It's not perfect, but friends, it's better than nothing, and it's a lot better than nothing. And so I'm just seeing your faces and hearing your voices. Boy, it just resurrects me and helps me to feel like. Boy, even in in our all darkest hours, we have a great community of folks here to look out for each other, and spring is coming. So Debbie, are you good with the scores?
Yeah. Greg, you got a 7.0.
Congratulations to Greg. Okay, so Sarah, we are so excited to welcome you to the Story Slam stage. Shove Patrick out of the way, get that camera focused right on you, drink your jungle juice, get your liquid courage, and we're so excited to have you. So Sarah, please take it away.
Yeah, we weren't muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
You were.
I can't see a thing, you guys. Thank you so much, room full of strangers that were strangers until an hour and a half ago. Really loved hearing your stories, and Greg, that was just so stinking romantic. Oh my gosh. Here's a story about the opposite thing. Bear with me. The year was 1998. I lived in southern Nevada, the desolate, isolated desert of southern Nevada. And I was desolate, isolated in my home. I was in a really bad marriage, but I was in denial about that. It would take me years to come to terms with the fact that there was abuse actually going on, verbal, not physical, and that's why it took me a lot of years to come to terms with it. But in the thick of that, I lived probably 5 miles from my parents, 7 miles from my brother, 3 miles from my grandparents. I didn't see any of my family because this was the kind of situation that I was in. And I was in my late 20s. I was holding down like 3 part-time jobs, substitute teacher in the public school district. I was a teaching assistant at the college. I taught private piano lessons. I did whatever I could to get the heck up out of the house. Did we just leave?
No, we're still there, I think.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, the window left me. So using any excuse I could to just leave the house because I didn't want to be at home ever. I held down all these jobs and I really was enjoying myself. One day when I had come home from a day of substitute teaching, I was in my long denim dress because that's what I wore. I couldn't decide whether I was a good church-going girl or like a neo-hippie. And came home from work, and at the time husband was taking a nap. He worked nights. He was a musician. And so in the afternoons when I would get home, I would have this nice peace and quiet. And the phone rang, and it was my mom. Now, my family and I we weren't estranged, but I didn't really hang out with them as much as I wanted to. And my mom was calling, and she said, "Are you alone?" Which was mom code for "I'm about to deliver you some really bad news." And I said, "Well, I'm alone. I'm the only one awake in the house." And she said, "Okay." She says, Paul and his wife were involved in a car accident, and they both died, and so did their little boy. And this is a friend of the family. This is a friend of a family that went to the church that we went to. There had been some turmoil in this church involving this family, and it was unresolved, and it was terrible, And the plan was for them to resolve this conflict they had in the church at a later date. And between that and the later date, they actually got into a car accident and all perished. And this was horrible. This was tragic. And I stood in this empty house, this palace of a house that wasn't really even my house. It was his house. And I had really nobody to talk to about it, because even my mom was having to deliver that news to everybody in our family. And so she said it like this: "Paul and Elisa and Caleb were killed in a car accident. Hang on," click, click. And then she was on another line with somebody else. And I didn't know what to do. And in the silence and in the isolation, all I could do was drop to my knees and just weep. Just weep. I didn't have words. I didn't know what to say. This family was precious to me, and they were all gone. I don't know. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know anything. I had no lifeline. I had no rock. I had no sounding board to bounce up against. And it wasn't too long before the sleeping person in the bedroom woke up and decided it was time to get ready to go to work that night. And he came out and he saw that I had been crying, and he asked what was wrong. And I told him, and he was like, "Wow, that's terrible." And he kept going on about his night, and then he left. And I was like, great. So I still had nobody to talk to, no sounding board, no counsel, but I did know that I did not want to be at home, because I never wanted to be at home. The only thing I could think to do was to just get in the car and start driving. I didn't make it too far before I found the garden center that was closest to our house. I walked into the garden center. They were still open. It wasn't quite dusk yet, and I didn't even know what I was doing. And I walked up to a rose bush. I don't know. And I was like, "This one, please." And it was this beautiful white rose bush. The flowers were very, they weren't huge, but they were voluminous. And it was kind of starting to be in bloom. I could see some buds coming up, and these were little white flowers for my newly sainted friends. I thought this would be the perfect way to memorialize them and also work through the stuff going in my brain about them. Bought this rose bush, took it back home, and I proceeded to plant it. Well, I'm in southern Nevada. Anything you know about that area of the country is it's a desert, but there's sand. There's desert sand on the top layer of what you walk on, and then not far beneath that, there's a layer of what we call caliche, which is literally a layer of natural rock. It's like busting through cement. You can't just dig a pool. You can't just dig a post hole. You can't just dig for a rose bush. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of oomph. And I, in my grief and still in my floor-length denim neo-hippie elementary school teacher dress, got out into the backyard, and by myself, I took to a big pile of dirt with my shovel, and I got about 8 or 9 inches down. It's not nearly far enough to where I ran into that caliche, that natural rock, that natural cement. And I thought, I can't do this. And then I went to that place that I went to so often in my life at that time, which was, I can't do anything. I can't pull this off. What was I thinking? Like, I bought this rose bush thinking I could put it in the ground. I have to have somebody do this for me because I am incapable. This is the narrative going on in my head at the time. But it was very important for me to start this tradition of planting a permanent thing when one of my beloved people or my beloved things or something that happens in my life is lost. It was very important. This was the day they died, and this was the day I had to plant this rose bush. So I went tearing through the shed, and I found the pickaxe. Yeah, I swung a pickaxe, and I screamed. I got to where I screamed at each pick I was taking, and I busted through enough caliche to fit that potted rose bush in there with enough good soil that it was going to thrive. There weren't a lot of flowers on it when I bought it, but when I put it in the ground and I began to water it, over the next few days, I saw those buds bloom, and they bloomed gloriously, and they were my little sainted friends. And I didn't know it at the time, but boy, do I know it now. That was one of the displays I made to myself that proved in my own mind I did have the strength to walk away. And eventually I did. Thank you. Mute.
I'm speechless, Sarah. That was oh wow. What a story. What a story. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Welcome to Ship Story Slam. We're so delighted to have you, and congratulations on just everything, and for your willingness to share that that really personal and frankly uplifting story with all of us. Thank you. So everyone, we're going to give Debbie a few minutes to finish calculating the scores. And she'll pass those on to me. In the meantime, I want to once again thank you. Actually, hold on for 1 second. Did everyone get the poll that Debbie just sent? I didn't either. So we may be having just a tiny little bit of a technical difficulty. I heard that many people didn't get the last poll either. Is that true? How about that?
Probably because there's no way I deserved a 7.
That was a 5 story if I've ever heard one, Greg.
Oh,
so
you're a history teacher. What do you know?
This is a game where the points don't matter. Don't worry, friends. So Debbie, why don't you go ahead and sending that back out again, and we'll figure out. We'll see if we can figure out what's going on. There we go. Did you guys get it now? Fantastic. Okay. So go ahead and vote on this one. Greg, would it make you feel better if we did another poll for you too?
The poll we're doing right now is for Sarah's story, right?
It is for Sarah's story, but but Greg, let's just say that I know Greg well enough to know that he would like to have another poll for him too. So everyone,
listen here. All I care about is sharing my story. I don't care about
you are such a good man.
It's a 10 no matter what. Okay.
Fantastic. So, and again, and forgive us, folks. This is these are awkward. This whole voting thing in this poll system. We're going to play around with this and figure it out down the road. And again, remember, many of our storytellers have already won, so their scores don't count anyway.
In case you were wondering what my fiance looked like, she's right here.
Whoa. Greg, I'm not sure you deserve such a beauty, to be honest, Greg.
I got 2 of them, and I don't deserve either one of them, believe me. She's in the kitchen, and she's wonderful. I love her.
Is that a female or a male dog, Greg?
I have 3 females besides me right now. Oh, I have 1 male cat.
We will leave any rude comments out of this story entirely. So while we're waiting, Debbie, do you have all the polls in now? So Debbie has the polls in for Sarah. She's going to count those, and then because we want to be fair, we're going to send that poll back out for Greg as soon as Debbie's ready. So I want to just thank you all in the meantime for coming to Ship Story Slam. As you can see on your screen, and I'm so sorry I distracted you, Sarah, by shifting from our April to our May flyer. I didn't mean to do that. I just want to remind you all that our May Story Slam, unless somehow, some way, we are back at ABC in May, which I just don't think is going to happen, friends. Our May Story Slam will be on Zoom as well. And if you're interested in telling a story, I will post the link to the sign-up sheet for that story in advance, and I'll send it out to everyone who's attended here. Okay, so there's Greg's poll up too now. So everyone vote for Greg's story. A 10 in my book, Greg, and you're a winner anyway in my book. So no matter how it turns out, you're always a winner.
You're not the first teacher to lie to me either.
I'm not. So our May Story Slam will be in May, I think May 14th, if I remember correctly. And we'll be right back here on Zoom again, which again, you know, it's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. We'll make it work. I would like to take a moment to thank everyone for attending our first online event and making it a success. And to thank the Shippensburg Revitalization Group and our season sponsor, the Lure Center, for all of their support in this. Thank you to also to Appalachian Brewing, our normal host, and to Ship and Stitch and to Tim Deal. And I just want to take a moment here while Debbie's tabulating those second round of scores to say, did the poll send, did Greg's poll go through or not?
Yeah,
it did. Did we get 2 polls? We got 2 polls. Great. Okay. So while Debbie's tabulating those scores, thanks, Luke, for that thumbs up. I also want to just put in a little word. Please do, friends, keep all of our local downtown businesses in your thoughts. What a difficult time. And I'm particularly want to, in addition to Appalachian Brewing, particularly, I want to get everyone to think about our good friend Tim Deal at Ship and Stitch.
He does online orders still and curbside pickup, I believe. Just
fantastic. So please do, if you get a moment, go online. I don't sew. I can barely tie my shoes, but I'm going to go on right now and order something from Ship and Stitch just to show how much I appreciate Tim. He's done just a fabulous job with everything. What a cute dog too. We want to make sure our small businesses can survive this downtown apocalypse. And now we have Debbie, I think, to announce our winner for the night. Debbie?
So tonight's winner is...
And remember, lots of folks, this doesn't necessarily represent the highest score because lots of folks have won already. But this is our highest qualified score. Go ahead, Debbie.
Hold on. Wait 1 second.
I think what Alan meant to say was that whoever wins absolutely deserves it. There were some people who were previous winners, so we can't count them in.
Because they have already proven how fabulous they are. And we want to, this is an open, right? Open and welcoming event for all of our storytellers. Debbie, take it away.
So tonight's winner is Sarah Thompson.
Congratulations! Woohoo! I told you, the pride of Jacksonville, Sarah Thompson. Sarah, you are the winner of a one-of-a-kind Sarah Thompson wall hanging provided by Ship and Stitch, and tickets to the Lure Center once it opens back up again, and you have returned at some point to Shippensburg. So
Road trip.
congratulations.
I can get your wall hanging to you. I will make that happen.
Awesome. Sweet.
So congratulations, Sarah. Congratulations to all of our storytellers. And to be honest with you, friends, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is a real honor to be among all of you. We really, really appreciate it. Our goal here is just keep our Story Slam a thriving and a surviving until we can all get back together in person. So I hope to see all of you in May. Please do invite your friends. Hell, invite your enemies. Greg has more of those than friends, so we'll get quite a crowd for May. We're looking forward to it. And in the meantime, friends, stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and please do stay in touch. Cheers.